you ready, you can start, Mataji.
Sure, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Deva. I'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narotayam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaye Uddare Nistyaprayeshu Adveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhakti Uttam Sloke Bhakti Bhavarti Nastike. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 14, King Chitraketu's Lamentation, text 50 through 61. Text 50. When King Chitraketu heard of his son's death from unknown causes, he became almost blind. Because of his great affection for his son, his lamentation grew like a blazing fire, and as he went to see the dead child, he kept slipping and falling on to the ground. Surrounded by his ministers and other officers and the learned brahmanas present, the king approached and fell unconscious at the child's feet, his hair and dress scattered. When the king's when the king's breathing heavily regained consciousness, his eyes were tearful and he could not speak. Text 52. When the queen saw her husband, King Chitraketu, merge in general lamentation and saw the dead child, who was the only son in the family, she lamented in various ways. This increased the pain in the core of the heart of all the inhabitants of the palaces, the minister and all the brahmanas. Text 53. The garland of flower decorating the queen's head fell, and her hair scattered. Falling tears melted, and cololium of her tears and moistured her breast, when which were covered with kumkum powder. As she lamented the loss of her son, her loud crying resembled the sweet sound of Kurki birds. 50, text 54. Alas, O Providence, O Creator, you are certainly inexperienced in creation, for during the lifetime of the Father, you have caused the death of his Son, thus acting in opposition of your creative laws. If you are determined to contradict these laws, you are certainly the enemy of living entities and are never merciful. Text 55. O my Lord, you may say that there is no law that a father must die in the lifetime of his son, and the son must be born in the lifetime of his father, since everybody lives and dies according to his or her own fruitive activity. However, if fruitive activity is so strong that birth and death depends on it, there is no need of a controller or God. Again, if you say that a controller is needed because the material energy does not have power to act, one may answer that if the bond of affection you have created are distributed by fruitive action, no one will raise children with affection. Instead, everyone will cruelly neglect his children. Since you have cut the bond of affection that compels a parent to raise his child, you appear inexperienced and unintelligent. Text 56. My dear son, I am helpless and very much aggravated. You should not give up my company. Just look at the lamenting father. We are helpless because without a son we shall have to suffer the distress of going to the darkest hellish regions. You are the only hope by which we can get out of the darkest region. Therefore, I request you not to go any further with the merciless Yama. Text 57. My dear son, you have slept a long time. Now please get up. Your playmates are calling you to play. Since you must be very hungry, please get up and suck my breast and dissipate our lamentation. Text 58. My dear son, I am certainly most unfortunate, for I can no longer see your mild smiling. You have closed your eyes forever. I therefore conclude that you have been taken from this planet to another, from which you will not return. My dear son, I can no longer hear your pleasing voice. Text 59. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, accompanied by his wife, who was there lamenting for her dear son. King Chitraketu began crying loudly, with an open mouth, being greatly aggravated. Text 16. As the king and the queen lamented, all their males and females followers joined them in crying. Because of a sudden accident, all the citizens of the kingdom were almost unconscious. Text 61. When the great sage Agnira understood that the king was almost dead in an ocean of lamentation, he went there with Narada Rishi. Hare Krishna. This ends the chapter. Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Sri Krishna Prabhu, when you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Um, thank you, Alabeli Sri Radha Mataji. Thank you very much for reading today. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yogam Sikshashthamekam Purusha Puranam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sariradhare Krupam Vidittamaham Prapadye Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Makam karoti vachalam pangum langete girum yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we are reading this section where Chitraketu's lamentation is being exhibited, and how the sages Angira Muni and Narada Muni, they come and give the messages of Krishna consciousness to extremely lamented Chitraketu that's going to come up in the next chapter. So here in this chapter, we can see a lot of a lot of this, how in the material world um, a lot of these envy happens, and how people become extremely joyful when something happens to the life, and then when they lose it, they become completely morose. So in the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So in the one who has attained this Brahma Bhuta stage, Krishna gives a particular point about lamentation and hankering. So the hankering is for what we don't have, and lamentation is for what we lost. So in this case, it's a very beautiful situation, very morose situation, and also a beautiful situation how we can learn from these examples, that Chitraketu wanted a son very badly, and he was extremely trying for that to have a son, and then he obtained a son, and he lost him. So on the one side he had this hankering, on the other side, when he lost it, he was basically lamenting. So this is a situation in the material world mostly we go through. Everybody hankers after a particular joyful position, a good situation in the material world, and after obtaining it, it just slips away from their hands, and then it puts them into extreme lamentation. So let's see how these verses, some of these messages. So we can see how if somebody is getting extremely benedicted, by some opulent position, the others become really envious. So in this case, the queens, co-wives of Chitraketu, they become envious of Kridyayati because she was having this beautiful son, and the son is giving a joy to the whole family, the whole kingdom, and the king was extremely benediction, extremely affectionate towards this particular queen. Instead of they become joyful, they become envious. So this is another sign of material world that Paradukhi Dukhi is the Vaishnavas. They are Paradukhi Dukhi and Parasukhi Sukhi. Like when others are happy, they are happy. When others are sad, they are sad. But on the opposite side in the material world, when others are happy, people are extremely envious and they are sad. So because these queens, they could not take it, they came to the extremely cruel situation of rendering poison to this a small boy. How can they think about such a cruel thing? But in the material world, it happens. People become envious and they'll try to do anything to um, get rid of your happy situation. So in this case, they even make a show of crying uh, just to blend with the sorrowful situation. The queens also, they are crying. so so we can see how Chitraketu, upon hearing the son's death from unknown reasons, so he become extremely sorrowful, and then his heart become heavy, and some particular words are used to describe his moroseness. So just like in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's lamentation was described. So here Chitraketu's lamentation was described, and how we can see like Krishna giving this knowledge, Bhagavad Gita knowledge to Arjuna after this extremely uh, situation that where he's completely become unconscious, and Gandhiba slipping from his hands. His hands are shivering, he's lost his composure. Similarly, here Chitraketu has come to an extremely sorrowful position that he almost become blind, Andha, and he is almost his dead child. His lamentation was so vast that it was like a blazing fire. So if somebody is surrounded by a blazing fire, how would they feel? They would feel extremely uncomfortable. So he was in that position. He was extremely uncomfortable, and nothing in this world would satisfy him. So only sadhu like Narada Muni and Angira Muni, they were able to pacify him and bring him to the consciousness, because they were giving this transcendental knowledge. Nothing of this material world. They are not trying to pacify him with some wealth or some better situation. They are trying to give him this transcendental knowledge by which he understands this a bigger picture of the entire creation, why everything is happening. So now Chitraketu, he was surrounded by such opulence, millions of queens. Nothing is satisfying him because of this sorrowful situation. Now is the best time for him to understand this transcendental knowledge, because he has come to this position of in Bhagavatam says that Athato Brahma Jignasa, like now is the time to inquire about Brahman. So Chitraketu has seen all the opulences, and then he has come to an extremely sorrowful situation. Now is the perfect time for him to blend into the transcendental message of Lord Sri Krishna. So, so now the king becomes almost unconscious, and then he's falling at the feet of the child, and is crying very loudly. He's crying and his tears are falling from his eyes. So if somebody cries very loudly, then we can understand that they are almost unconscious. Their eyes are completely focusing on just one pointed attention, the loss, the lamentation. And that's pretty much. So similarly, we can see that Chitraketu is completely lamenting. So in this material world, we can see there are many situations, bad situations happens, people lament, and then after a couple of days they come out of the situation, they continue their normal life. But in Chitraketu's situation, this is a extremely mercy of the Lord, because the son was born by the mercy of a sage, Angira, and the sage, being merciful to Chitraketu, he is, his hand is there, meaning that whenever the sage, like Angira Muni or Narada Muni, they come into your life, they not only take you out of a temporary miserable situation, but they give you the permanent asset of Krishna consciousness. So that is what happening in Chitraketu's life. So it seems that this particular boy was an enemy of Chitraketu in his previous life. So in this life, uh, he uh, um, he is born as a child, and again he is causing a lot of sorrow and misery to Chitraketu again. So now this the whole situation is being described here in this verses, from verse number 50, how the queen Kridyati is so much in moroseness that she was hearing this news. She ran to the child and she saw how he's unconscious, and she is also crying extremely, the extreme tears and loud noise, and she also lost her composure. So her crying is being poetically described as a sound of a kurari bird. Kurari bird is described as a bird which is a sea hawk compared to osprey, or a sea hawk, and it just on this either river or sea or lake, it just preys on the fish, so it makes that similar noise. If you go to ocean, you surrounded by those seahawks, you can feel that the sound, it's like extremely one who is lost. A human being doesn't make this kind of a sound, but when he is extremely crying with a loud crying, this situation. So Bhagavatam is always very poetic. It describes even the extremely sorrowful situation compared to a bird here. So we can also hear now, Kridyati. So now she lost her son. Now she is describing this sorrowful situation and bringing the Lord into the picture. The Lord of the creation, how can be is so inexperienced that before the father dies, the son is died. These laws are very cruel, and she is trying to complain that the creator is not experienced. So this is a situation that happens in the material world, that when some reversals happens, we call reversals meaning, anytime we see that the life, this extreme sorrow and this happy path is being cut off by an extreme sorrowful situation, that they call as reversal. So in this situation, this a loss of a son is an extremely sorrowful situation that they haven't expected it to happen. So if everything happens according to expectation, it's very nice. But if you didn't expect this to happen, it's such a sorrowful situation. This is generally called a reversal. In the situation like this, normally people, they complain about, God, Supreme Personal Godhead, how he can be so cruel, how he only does it only for me, like that. People have so many complaints. So Kridyayati also is, she's complaining, and how can the laws of nature be so cruel? So it is tough. The laws of nature are very, very stringent. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that no one can understand this laws of nature. It is so complicated. It's just like the spider's web. We don't know where it started, where it ended. It's like a beautiful web created. So similarly, laws of nature are so complicated to understand. So we have to go so many lifetimes before to see what happened, why this situation happened, how we come together and how we go take apart. This is all very complicated to understand. So now the subtle laws, the fruitive activities are so stringent. When Brahmaji explains in Brahma Samhita, he also explains this in this verse that karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. So this Indra and the Indra Gopa germ, like this is the germ, very small germ, and then Indra, who is the chief of all demigods, both of them is being under the stringent laws of karma. So the karma is so stringent that it gives them according to their activities, previous activities and results. They get a particular body and they have to continue according to their karmic reactions. So it's very stringent. But on the other side, one who is performing bhakti, for them this karma is burnt in the fire so easily. The Lord is always equally benedicting to everyone, but he becomes extremely partial to his devotees. That verse Brahmaji says. So he is appreciating the path of bhakti, how bhakti can dissolve all the karmic reactions and one can become free from all karmic reactions. So in this verse also, Kridyayati, she is complaining about how these karmic reactions are so cruel that his son is died. So now, in this material world, the bonds of affection, she's talking about the bonds of affection. How these bonds of affection you've created are disturbed by the fruitive action. So now, um, you can see that the son and the son and mother and son and father is so bonded by their affection in this life. But then, in this life, that particular boy, Bala, they call, in the astrology, they call, when somebody has to die in a very young age, they have a particular terminology. They use that he is going to be in his young age, he's going to leave the body, so they will kind of predict. So it's very extremely painful for the parents, because of his past fruitive activities. So now she is saying that this is very cruel. It's separating the people. Why did God create the affection and then He has to separate the affection, bonds of affection, by the fruitive activities, fruitive actions? It doesn't look like perfect creation. Like that, she is complaining. So, but we understand that this how this the whole material universe is created such that one can fulfill his desires. At the same time, one has to search after the supreme transcendental situation that one can make his one can completely purify his existence and reach the highest destination of spiritual world, where there is no birth, death, old age and disease, where there is no lamentation, hankering, where there is a pure bliss. So such an existence can be felt even while living in this material world. So people call Jivan Mukta, like while even living in this material world, one can experience such a situation on the path of bhakti. So that yastu indragopam atavendra ahosva karma bandhanurupa palabhajana matanoti karmani nirdahati kintucha bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So in that verse, Lord Brahmaji explains very nicely that this is a chain of reactions and action and reaction. So this can be only cut by the path of bhakti, and it can completely nullify all your fruitive reactions. So otherwise, one has to accept a position according to what activities we performed. So it's very stringent. So now in this verse number 56, so she now uh, a mother completely she is completely helpless, and she is just looking at King Chitraketu. So and then Chitraketu also is completely helpless, and he is also extremely lamenting, and he's loudly crying, and the situation is pretty sorrowful. The ministers, the chief queen servants, and everybody is in an extremely sorrowful situation, and also the whole kingdom. So when the king is morose, the kingdom cannot flourish. The king is supposed to be extremely sober, and he can make his decisions for the welfare of all citizens. So but in this case, when the king is morose and sorrowful, the kingdom is also very sorrowful, and they also, like the kingdom, the citizens are considered like a children of the king. So they have a extremely good relationships. A good king considers his citizens to be just like his children and take care of their necessities. So in this situation, the whole kingdom is pretty sorrowful. So now there are, I mean, just like if you go to any deathbed situation, people just remind of the relationships. They speak something nice about you, and then they just remind about how your relationships were actually beautiful. So like that, Kridyayati also saying several things, how this beautiful smiling face, how we used to play, all this she's remembering, the child's pleasing voice, all this she's saying she can no longer have access to. So it's a deathbed situation now. Finally, the Sukadeva Goswami is saying that now King Chitraketu, completely on a extremely morose situation. Generally, man doesn't cry loudly, but we can see here that it is mentioned that Mukta Kantaha Rurodaha. So he also started loudly crying. Chitraketu also started loudly crying, and he is in an extremely sorrow situation. So at this time, um, at this time, it is mentioned in the last verse 61 that Evam Kashmalam Apannam. So now at this misery, Kashmala means the miserly situation or extremely sorrowful situation. Uh, Nasta Samnyanam Anayakam Jnanat Jnanatva Angira Nama Rishir. So knowing this, Angira Muni and along with Narada Muni, they went there to pacify King Chitraketu and give him Krishna consciousness and give him all the um, knowledge that he is hankering to receive. So Hare Krishna. This concludes the today's last verse. Thank you very much. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, शिल प्रपात की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। वंशा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.